Good evening, everyone. Tonight we will be presenting about women and religion. There are many different religions in the world, and given the time, we do not have the ability to inform you on every single one and the experience that women face in each of them. With that being said, we decided to focus on some of the largest religions in the world, Christianity and Islam, and also the belief system of atheism.
We will first be looking at atheism. Atheism is defined as the lack of a belief in gods. Atheism is not a religion or belief system. By definition, the only agreed on belief among atheists is a lack of belief. Atheists do not necessarily believe that there is no God. They usually are not sure what they believe. Because of this, atheists do not have sacred texts or scriptures that they follow, making it challenging to explore their views on women and women's roles. Though it is challenging, it is still important to try to study atheist views, as they are generally thought of as free thinkers and their views may vary greatly from other major world religions. There are groups of atheists that come together with common beliefs. For this presentation, we will be looking at the American Atheists. This group has taken on the challenge to further define atheist views and create their own common beliefs. We will be looking at this group to further understand how many atheists view women. Looking at the American Atheist Group can help us understand how many atheists view women and women's rights. The American Atheists advocate that religion should not be used as the primary justification for any policy. They believe that science, reason, and shared humanity should be the basis of building evidence-based policies. To do this, they have drafted the Right to Know Act. Currently, there are no state or federal regulations requiring medical providers to disclose what services they opt out of due to religious reasons. Some of the services the American Atheists believe need to be included in this act are abortion, access to birth control, and tubal ligation. The passing of this act would directly affect women and their ability to choose providers that support their right to make their own choices when it comes to reproductive care. Looking at this act shows us that many atheists believe that women have the right to their own choices.
So the first thing we're going to discuss is the composition of women in atheism. First off, most atheists consist of white men. This means there is a lot of diverse opinion on women in this group. Some sources claim that because of the specific demographic, that atheists are more prone to sexism than the average person. However, in many cases coming from the actual women in this group, this negative speculation was not the case. According to the Pew Research Center, 82% of atheistic women are white. This information is very impactful. This is because it typically shows that in a lot of racial minorities, in their culture, it is typically not socially accepted to carry the atheistic views. Someone's culture and racial identity do have a large impact on the amount of oppression a woman may get. White or European people of origin tend to have a more liberal mindset, hence the significant margin of white atheistic women compared to women of color. Secondly, a significantly high percentage of atheistic women are not mothers. And thirdly, 37% of atheists are married and 34% were never married. Although there has been a lot of research done on why this is, one can take a guess. In many religions, a woman's only job is to be a wife and a mother. Atheism is a more progressive way of life as it promotes the individuality and independence of the woman. This is a contributing factor to why a significant amount of people who identify as atheists are not mothers, and a good chunk of them have never been married. Lastly, across all socioeconomic classes, atheistic women are evenly distributed across low, middle, and high-class individuals. In this second slide, we will discuss the behavior of atheistic women. According to the Journal of Gender Studies, atheism and feminism are both devalued identities that are embraced by women. In many cultures, being a woman is a weakness, and being an atheist will land you as an outcast. When these two societal labels are brought together, the result can actually be quite legitimizing for women. Secondly, atheism is usually an empowering thing for women. Many atheists pride themselves on being more progressive in society. Because they have no religious rules that bind them to a particular mindset, they tend to be very open and respectful of most other cultures and people. This means that women are placed equally in the minds of most atheists because it is an atheistic culture to respect others and hear each other out. They're just very open-minded people, from the research we've gathered. Thirdly, atheism allows women to be included in an all-accepting community instead of being confined and defined by a persecuting religion. On another note, feminism has a long history of outspoken atheists as well as religious skeptics. Atheistic women may find their defiance of cultural and gender norms to be meaningful as it helps them form their identity. In the United States, it is statistically more likely for women to participate in religious rituals and norms. Therefore, women who do not conform to religious ideologies defy normative constructions of femininity.
Certain Americans feel that Muslim women are abused by their faith, that they are compelled to wear full face coverings, that they are forbidden access to education, and that they are denied other essential rights. True, however, Muslim women, like ladies all throughout the globe, have suffered with inequity and limiting customs in schooling, job, and household duties. Most of these injustices, on the other hand, are rooted in regional cultures and traditions rather than Islam. Upper-class ladies in Byzantine culture and Sassanian ladies of imperial palace don the veil as a display of their high position before coming of the 7th century. Top women in ancient Muslim society in the same location followed this practice. Even after converting to Islam, many nomadic women maintain their customary mobility and less restricted dress requirements. Based on the predominance of regional feudal practices, Quranic women's rights were not always honored. Women in Ottoman Egypt in the late 19th century, for instance, were frequently denied the entire succession owned to them by statute. Nevertheless, if they took the relatives who hoarded their payment to Muslim tribunal, they may win. This is still the situation in several countries' civil litigation procedures. The rules for veiling differ across countries. In the contemporary day, severe regulations about women's clothing are frequently employed to stress in administration's spiritual inclination, such as in Iran or Saudi Arabia. Turkey, on the other hand, forbids women from wearing the veil in state offices or colleagues since the Turkish government is devoted to a more humanistic character. Tunisia likewise forbids the wearing of the veil. Many citizens are unsatisfied with the legislation in all circumstances. Medical professionals, architects, attorneys, pharmacists, mothers, television journalists, academics, secretarial employees, businesswomen, and elementary school teachers are among the many Muslim women who work in America. A few are refugees from sub-Saharan Africa to Indonesia. While some are native-born Americans, some Muslim women in the United States reared in Muslim homes, whereas others converted to Islam as grown-ups. The Quran granted the women opportunity to owning property and financial freedom in the 7th century Arabia, outlawed female foeticide and other forms of maltreatment, and drastically altered marriage and divorce patterns, whereas many Americans perceive Islam to be an authoritarian faith, where its opportunity to owning property and financial freedom where it comes to women, Muslim women frequently express gratitude for the rights and independence that they have as a result of their religion. There is a growing trend in the United States of America, American Muslim women becoming more involved, stressing their leadership positions in the public and corporate domains, including within Muslim populations. According to a report, American Muslim women hold more powerful roles in society than Muslim women in other nations, as well as American women of many other faiths. Islamic women's associations have formed across the United States to discuss issues of scriptures and custom interpretations. Most of these organizations also collaborate to address bias against hijab-wearing women in the industry and public spaces. Women in Islam. There's a common belief that Muslim women are oppressed by their religion, forced to cover themselves completely, and denied education and other basic rights. Where it is true that Muslim women have struggled against inequality and restrictive practices in education, workforce participation, and family rules, many of these oppressive practices do not come from Islam itself, but are a part of local cultural traditions. As mentioned, it is the appropriation of Islamic texts by Muslims and Muslim governments to impose legal and social restrictions on their civil rights and freedoms. How women are viewed within the Islamic religion. Muslim women are not considered equal to men or valued equally with men in Islamic society. While many of the specifics of Sharia law, which is the Islamic religious law, are not found in the Quran, traditional Muslim texts and practices are used to justify these restrictions that limit women's access to education, transportation, and employment, which as a result make women reliant on these men. The unwillingness to question the different requirements for men and women is a sign of this ongoing oppression. How Islamic women are expected to act. Islamic religion stresses the importance of women obeying their husbands and wearing a veil. The importance of the veil. Head coverings play an important role in many religions. Scarves and veils of different colors and shapes were customary in countless cultures long before Islam came in the 7th century. People can critique and say they are forced to wear coverings. However, the veil symbolizes devotion and piety, and veiling is their own choice, which stresses the importance of religious identity and self-expression. I decided to include different types of headscarves because I feel that everyone should be educated on these. So here are the 4 types. And how Islamic women feel. They vary from country to country, but in overall, most agree that Muslim women are more supportive of women's rights, and they stress the importance of religious identity and self-expression.
We will now move on to women in Christianity and how they are viewed and their role in this religion. Christianity is the world's largest religious group at about 31% of the Earth's 7.3 billion population. Although Christianity holds its faith on the foundation that focuses on the teachings of Jesus Christ, among these teachings there are subgroups that hold different values and beliefs of certain issues that women face. With that being said, we will be focusing on the teachings and belief system of traditional Christianity, such as evangelical and fundamentalist Christians who focus their beliefs straight from the Word of the Bible. This traditional view of Christianity is a common accepted religion among many, but it holds some controversial views of modern-day policies that involve power over a woman's knowledge of sexual education and freedom of choice to an abortion. For example, National Public Radio poll report stated that the historical impetus for abstinence education has come from evangelical or born-again Christians. 81% of evangelical or born-again Christians believe it is morally wrong for unmarried adults to engage in sexual intercourse. 49% believe that the government should fund abstinence-only programs instead of using the money for more comprehensive sex education. For those who may not know, a comprehensive sex education is scientifically accurate information about human development, anatomy, and reproductive health, as well as information about contraception, childbirth, and sexually transmitted infections. As can see illustrated in this photo, many traditional Christians believe educating teens on a comprehensive sex education will only encourage the idea of sex, when in actuality it could keep them safe and educated about things like STIs. Many evangelical and fundamentalist Christians take a vow of chastity or virginity pledge. Researchers compared adolescents who reported taking a virginity pledge with a matched sample of non-pledgers. Research found that virginity pledgers did not differ from non-pledgers in lifetime sexual partners and age of first sex. Also, virginity pledgers were less likely to have used birth control and condoms in the past year and at last sex. This research raises the possibility that moralistic attitudes toward sexuality can actually increase the likelihood of sexual intercourse and pregnancy by discouraging a comprehensive sex education that includes information about contraception. The Bible states in the sixth commandment, "Thou shalt not kill." Because evangelical and fundamentalist Christians view abortion as murder, many of them do not believe it is a woman's choice over her own body to choose to have a child, more so that it is in God's plan, as can see in the image above. A research study focused on the stigma of having an abortion found that the fundamental beliefs that many Christians have against this right for a woman to choose have created negative impacts on those who choose to have an abortion and are a part of the Christian community, which stem from negative attitudes towards abortion that are associated with when life begins, women's sexual behavior, women's roles in society, and the perception that abortion is a marginal and unnecessary healthcare practice. Of the 627 women who completed the entire abortion stigma survey, which was about 29% that were asked, found that women who were very religious or spiritual scored higher on the community condemnation subscale, and research suggests that highly religious Christian women that have abortions are at the greatest risk for abortion stigma. As stated, many evangelical and fundamentalist Christians focus majority of their teachings straight from the writings in the Bible. With that being said, I have provided examples from what some of the scripture states about women and their societal roles. In the story of creation, it states that God created Adam and Eve, but they disobeyed him by eating an apple that was tempted to them by Satan. Because they disobeyed God, they both received punishment, and Eve's punishment was as stated. To the woman he said, "I will make your pains in childbearing very severe. With painful labor you will give birth to children. Your desire will be for your husband, and he will rule over you." In further writings, it also states, "A woman should learn in quietness and full submission. I do not permit a woman to teach or to assume authority over a man. She must be quiet, for Adam was formed first, then Eve. And Adam was not the one deceived. It was the woman who was deceived and became a sinner." In a peer-reviewed journal article, Sarah Stitzlin stated, "Being instructed in such passages may cause girls to feel guilty and deserving of punishment simply by virtue of being female, rather than by actions of their own. It can also lead to the mindset that their biblically assigned role is to submit to men that God placed in authority over their lives."
Christianity, how women are told to act. So talking from a general standpoint of traditional Christianity, we could look here into the Bible where Timothy says, "Women must likewise be dignified, not malicious gossips, but temperate, faithful in all things." He also says, "I also want the women to dress modestly, with decency and propriety, adorning themselves not with elaborate hairstyles or gaudy or pearls or expensive clothing." We can see the Bible reference women should follow a life of peace, faith, and remain temperate, and they should also act with loyalty, generosity, and modesty. Many Bible verses overall discuss women as followers to not only God but their husbands, and women in the Bible are depicted mainly as providers or supporters. They could reveal how women should act as followers of God. So here in these two videos, the first one's around 5 minutes. It raises the question, what does it mean to obey God while also desiring to be valued as a woman? So with what we just discussed, it's kind of hard to wrap the idea of feminism and Christianity intertwining and working together. But the video does a good job, I think, at defending that viewpoint, and it will argue that the Bible supports women and they could both be Christian and feminist. The second video, it is around 12 minutes. It is a TED Talk by a girl named Olivia Pierce. She was a junior at Adena High School, and she argued Christianity is perceived as a white man's religion because it is due to the lack of representation of the visuals generated by the church. So visuals, for example, would be right here on the right-hand side. We see Jesus, the Virgin Mary, Jesus, and the disciples, usually depicted as a white European man. They're very light-colored in skin. And she argues this unconscious bias can lead to disparity between perceived reality and verbal messages. And this can make a direct impact everywhere, not just within the church, but in schools, communities, workplaces, and more. Okay, so another thing I want to talk about was the gender gap in Christianity. So according to the Pew Research Center in 2018, U.S. Christian women were found to be more religious than their male counterparts. Christian male and women were found to differ in devotional habits, where 74% of Christian women said they prayed daily, only 60% of men could say the same. And the gender gap in prayer was especially wide for Catholics and mainline Protestants, where 67% of Catholic women said they pray daily, only 49% of Catholic men said the same, and for mainline Protestants, only 62% of the women pray daily, only 44% of the men do the same. The survey overall showed that on average, men are more likely to be religiously unaffiliated. Another study I wanted to mention was done by Barna. It discussed Christian women today regarding leadership and what they think of their faith and their role in the church. It was published in 2012, and 73% of Christian women said they were making the most of their gifts and potential. At Mass, 72% said they felt they were doing meaningful ministry. However, roughly 3 out of 10 women who attend church would say they are resigned to low expectations when at church, and 1/6 would even go far to say that opportunities are being limited due to their gender. So the Barna study provided a huge infographic. I kind of took pieces of that, and the study did overlook multiple subgroups of Christianity, like how we just discussed in the last slide with percentages for Catholics and mainline Protestants. So these numbers we're seeing here are the average of Christianity's subgroups as a whole. And then overall, we could just see here that almost half, 49% of Christian women, feel they are servants rather than leaders in the church. And then on the right-hand side, we can kind of see how this looks like and the difference between the two jobs, how the two look. And overall, we could see 73% of women feel they can and should be doing more to serve God. I think this is kind of where it gets interesting, because just as we saw a few slides back revolving the gender gap in Christianity, kind of does raise that question: why is it women are not given leadership roles within the church if they are found to be the ones having higher percentages in devotional habits and religious habits now? So in conclusion, we did find that women are just more likely to be religiously affiliated than men, and then those who identify themselves as atheists will come from all backgrounds, and women do find a sense of empowerment in the atheistic way of life. They find themselves having a better sense of themselves and their identity. And then Muslim women are not considered equal to men in Islamic society and religion, and the veil is great symbolism for devotion and is put on their own choice. It can also be seen as an important form of religious identity and self-expression. And then women in most, if not all, subgroups of Christianity, like we just discussed, will still face issues today regarding leadership roles within the church. On the chart we see here on the right-hand side, it just gives an overall view of leadership opportunities for women in the variety of different religions. Okay, and these are our sources.